Hey folks, I'm Will Brantley, editor of Realtree.com, and today we are going to discuss the best days to deer hunt in 2024. All right, so one of our most popular articles every year on Realtree.com is Mike Hanback's roundup of the best days to deer hunt each season. And, you know, there's a lot of predictions made every year, you know, in the preseason about the best days to hunt. And, you know, some of it's art and some of it's science and some of it's written to get you to click on it. But, you know, Hanback really does a great job making these predictions. He looks ahead. He uses, obviously, his years of experience as a deer hunter. And he also really carefully studies you know, rut timing in various areas, the moon phases, things like that. And, you know, he doesn't just pick a handful of specific days. He kind of picks date ranges. And it's a good way, if you're scheduling your vacation time, you know, ahead of time, as a lot of us have to do, it kind of gives you a good range of different, you know, date ranges that could be productive that, you know, you can schedule that time off. And, you know, just kind of as proof, you know, last year of the 5 date ranges that Hanback chose, I killed a mature buck in 3 of them. So I'm definitely a believer. It's an article that I look forward to every year. And so let's get right into it and look at Hanback's choices for 2024. So the first choice is a pretty easy one. It's the bow opener, you know, opening week of archery season. It doesn't really matter. I mean, some states, Kentucky where I live, it comes in the first week of September. First Saturday in September is the traditional opener. A lot of places it's mid-September, and some places it's still the first week of October. And really, that's kind of beside the point. The bigger takeaway for opening week of bow season, obviously, is that deer haven't felt the pressure in a year. You know, they haven't had the intrusion of hunters shooting at them. There's more bucks on the landscape opening week of archery season than there's going to be at any other point in the year. And the other thing too is a lot of times there's really predictable food sources for opening week of bow season. You know, you've got crop fields, soybeans in particular are still green. You've got green food plots, a lot of green browse out there. If your season opens early enough, you know, say in September, you might be able to get on a summertime pattern, you know, when bucks are still in the bachelor group. They may even still be in velvet in some places. And so they're pretty easy to pattern. You know, trail cameras are really productive in the early season, but an even better way to scout in a way that Hanback kind of outlines in the story this year is to glass fields from a distance. You know, you can get out there with a pair of binoculars, a spot and scope, set up from a safe distance, and a lot of times those bucks are really visible in the late evenings. You can see them coming out into hay fields, bean fields, things like that, and you can really kind of get a line on the trails that they're using to enter the field. And then the setup is, you know, it's not rocket science. I mean, once you figure out the trails that the deer are using to enter a field, set up just inside the timber line on them and hope for a good close bow shot. So the second phase that we've chosen for the best weeks to deer hunt in 2024 is October 16th through the 20th. Now this is a time frame that might surprise a lot of guys. You know, you hear folks talk about the October lull and how hunting supposedly gets slower in October. And I've definitely had some slow hunts in October, but I've also had some really good ones. And, you know, it's one of those things that most of a given herd's does are going to be bred during that peak phase of the rut in most of the country. That's going to be mid-November. But there's always going to be a few does that come in to estrus a little bit early. And, you know, Hanback makes the point in his story this year that 5 to 7% of a given herd's does are going to be bred in mid-October. And this year, what he calls the super hunter's moon, that big full moon is gonna wax full on October 17th. And so a couple of things are going to happen with that. You know, that's going to be when some of those earliest does are going to come into estrus. That's also when bucks are really going to start cruising those ridge lines, laying down a lot of rubs, a lot of scrapes, and just leaving behind a lot of sign. And, you know, it's a good time to start hunting your pinch points, to maybe start hunting mornings a little bit. And with that full moon in particular, you know, if you're starting to hunt those mornings, you can expect some of your movement. A lot of times it's not going to happen right there at daylight. But if you're in the stand, a lot of times what that full moon does is get the deer up on their feet kind of mid-morning and even into midday. And so if you're going to hunt that October 16th through the 20th time frame, you're definitely going to want to hope for some cooler weather, for some cold fronts. But then also hunt those mornings and plan to stick it out a little bit. You know, take a breakfast with you, take a thermos of coffee, whatever you need to do to sit in the stand and give it several hours into the day. And hopefully you can catch some of that early rut movement. So the next really good date range this year in the best days to deer hunt in 2024, November 2nd through the 6th. Now, this is a time frame that bow hunters in particular are going to enjoy in most parts of the country. This is going to be right before your firearm season's open, and it's also going to be kind of the kickoff week to the rut. This is when big numbers of does are starting to come into estrus, but definitely the bucks are feeling it. They're getting antsy. They're up on their feet. They're moving. A lot of seeking, a lot of chasing. Your calls are effective. It's just a really good week to sit in a tree stand. Now, this year in particular, one of the reasons that we chose it, you're going to have a new moon on November 2nd. And what that's usually going to do, what you can kind of reliably depend on, a lot of good action at daylight, a lot of good action in the evenings, but this time of year too, you never know when a buck's going to be up on his feet. So if you can sit all day in a tree, it's a good time to do it. This is the time of year when you kind of want to start backing off those food source edges. Definitely hunting your pinch points, your timbered ridges, things like that. Get kind of closer to doe bedding areas. Anywhere really that you're seeing does, it's a good place to sit this time of year. But you can get in those pinch points, and as the bucks are moving, from point A to point B, a food source here, a bedding area there. What that pinch point does, that's just the area that they're likely to pass through. And so you want to be in a stand on those areas and really just kind of taking advantage of the traffic. But that November 2nd through the 6th time frame, if you're a bow hunter, that's my personal favorite week. If I were going to pick a time frame out of this whole set, that's probably the one that I'd choose my personal vacation. So the number 4 date range to choose from, November 13th through the 18th, another pretty good time of year to be in the woods. You're going to have a lot of firearm seasons are going to be open that time of year. Not only in the southeast, but the Midwest, the Northeast. Most parts of the country, you're going to have some gun hunting opportunities there. This is Mike Hanback's number 1 pick of the year, and the moon is going to wax to full on November 15th. You're going to start having, kind of after the 15th. That's usually with a Midwest rut timing. That's when most of your does are going to be bred, and you're going to be starting to get into the very early stages of the post-rut, at least the post-lockdown period. And before you get into that post-rut phase, you're still going to have a lot of bucks up on their feet. There's still going to be some breeding activity, and you're also going to reach that point in the season where does, in contrast to like early November, when they start going out into those open food sources, your little bucks are hassling them all the time. They can't really even put their heads down to feed, and as the rut intensifies, it just gets that much worse. And so a lot of times hunters will see a noticeable decline in in deer activity on your field edges and stuff in early November, just because those does they're getting bothered every time they're out there in the open. But by the 13th, 14th, 15th, as you get later into November, that biggest spike in breeding activity, it's kind of on the downslide. I think some of your little bucks are getting tired. A lot of times your does start getting comfortable again coming out in those fields. And so sitting on crop field edges, food plots, things like that, you start seeing those does again, and that is definitely when your bigger mature deer, they're not doing that a lot of times, that frantic activity that your little bucks are doing. So this is the time of year when you might see a doe come out and she's got a really good buck that just kind of tags out along next to her, and they're out there feeding in the wide open. So this is the time of year when you can see that November 13th through the 18th. It's a great time if you're trying to schedule a vacation to do some rifle hunting. It's a good time to do it. Now, the last time frame here, and this is one that Hanback and I have spent a lot of time, just discussing among ourselves the last several years, because we've both had some really good hunting, definitely in the very latest part of November, say from Thanksgiving all the way through that first week of December. Now, I know a lot of southern hunters are probably going to be watching this and be like, man, you guys always forget about us, and our rut's just now getting started in December. And I definitely hear you there. As keep in mind, as we're talking about these dates, we're kind of applying a Midwestern rut timing here because we want to paint with the widest brush. But for most of the country, November 30th through December 4th, you're definitely getting into that post-rut time of year. Things are coming to an end. The weather is usually starting to get pretty cold. The deer are going to start really congregating on whatever remaining food sources are out there. A lot of times it's going to be your waste grain and crop fields. In a lot of areas down south, it might be crop fields that are oversown with a cover crop like winter wheat or some brassicas, things like that. And but you're still going to have there's still just enough rut in the air that the mature bucks know that there's still probably a few does out there to be bred, and I really can't emphasize it enough. This has been a really productive time of year for me. The last couple of seasons, I've shot several nice bucks. In Tennessee and Texas in particular, from that Thanksgiving time frame through all the way about the first week of December, and a lot of times you still see them tagging along with those does. So, focus on your afternoon hunts in particular. Again, you're kind of reverting back to a bed to food source kind of pattern. And, hunt the edges, hope for those good cold fronts. And, if you're seeing does, you're probably going to be in the right place. So, again, those are, just to recap, your best days to deer hunt in 2024, opening week of bow season, October 16th through the 20th, November 2nd through the 6th, November 13th through the 18th, and November 30th through December 4th. So, and then, of course, any other time that you can get out there and get away from work and get the tree is probably a pretty good time to hunt too. So, good luck this fall.